One of the most emotionally painful experiences of our time is being ghosted. Ghosting is the term for when someone you care about all of a sudden breaks off any contact and ignores you. Both men and women do it in all imaginable ways, especially online. But before we get into the topic, I want to clarify what ghosting is not. Deciding not to respond to someone's first message, especially if it's along the lines of "Hey sexy," is not ghosting. Not replying after you clearly told them you're not interested and they ignore your wishes is not ghosting. Blocking the other person when they threaten you in any way is not ghosting. And of course, ignoring dick pics and the like is also not ghosting. To me personally, ghosting starts when you have at least messaged back and forth over the course of a few days and have talked about deeper topics than vacations and how much you love froyo. Are there exceptions? Certainly. But we gotta simplify a bit here in order to keep this video to a reasonable length. So if you ever cared for someone and fell victim to ghosting, you might desperately long for answers. Why did he or she stop responding to me? Why did I say something wrong, or did I offend them in any way? Did he look at my pics again and thought I'm not attractive enough? Did I not respond to their last message quickly enough and they lost interest? I'm sure you have heard of crime cases where the victim went missing. I'm a big true crime watcher, so bear with me on this. In all of these missing person cases, where the person has not been seen in a long time and hope is low, the relatives of the victim are usually extremely relieved when the body is found, even if it confirms their worst expectations. But not knowing is worse, and it doesn't allow for closure. Hope can be the most detrimental emotion of all of them. The same is true for ghosting. It keeps the person who is being ignored in a prolonged phase of uncertainty that triggers self-doubts and erodes trust in others. Basically, it's emotional torture. I read this brilliant comment by a user named Tosca on YouTube. The cruelty of ghosting is that you have to invent the reason for it, because that person has failed to explain it to you, and usually it's your deepest insecurities that become in your mind the ultimate truth. Since the main problem with ghosting is not knowing, I want to use this article to illuminate what ghosters and ghostees experience, in the hopes that both sides will understand each other better. A while ago I went through a heartbreaking experience myself, to be honest. So my relationship was over after 8 years. It was the kind of relationship where we talked about kids and marriage, and both of us knew that we loved each other deeply. But there were problems that we couldn't bridge anymore, and so things ended on good terms, but they ended. The first weeks after the breakup, I just felt raw and unable to deal with anything. But then I slowly noticed myself getting stronger. I could return to work and started doing activities like cooking and sports again. Activities I had previously loved but had stopped after the breakup. Eventually I felt like I wanted to meet new people again. I was excited that after such a long time in a committed relationship, I could meet new women and see if there was someone out there who might be a better fit for me. It was a bit scary as well. After all, I hadn't been single in more than 8 years. Ready to leave the past behind me, I slowly ramped up my social life, met new people again. I was solely interested in becoming friends first and feeling comfortable around someone new before even considering anything sexual. That's just how I felt back then. Anyway, during that time I gave online dating a shot. And I always used to be an opponent of online dating because I saw from my friends what usually came from it. One-night stands, endless texting with the aim of appearing flirtatious, games like not responding immediately, as to not look desperate, and I hated all of it. But I had been working in the dating advice space for quite a while and always felt like I should become more knowledgeable about online dating, even if only for the sake of my job. So I set up a Tinder profile and started playing around with it half seriously and without any expectations, to be honest. I was probably the only person on the whole platform that used Tinder the way I did. You know, I spent minutes on a single profile, clicking through every photo, listening to the Spotify songs they connected to their profiles, and reading every line of their descriptions. And I felt as if I'd been in a coma and now I'd woken up to a new strange world that I was too old for. But it was an interesting world to explore, and yeah, for me it was all alien territory basically. You know, sometimes a piece of clothing, a funny line in the description, or a smile stood out to me, and I swiped right on a woman. As it so happens in life, one of my maybe 4 women in total that I swiped right on matched me, and we started exchanging messages. All I knew from her was that she was pretty and that she had great sense of style. You know, and then I learned that she had the most beautiful name I've ever heard and was a bit intrigued. Then I learned, you know, that we had quite a few things in common and that we thought similarly on a bunch of topics, and I was more intrigued. So we messaged more and things started to gain momentum. She sent me her number, we talked over the phone, and we agreed to meet in person. It was tough for me to do all this since, you know, my relationship hadn't been over for so long. I was really nervous when I talked to her on the phone, and the thought of meeting someone new and supposedly really cool again was quite scary. On the other hand, opening a new chapter of my life and talking about it with someone who had a similar story and seemed emotionally mature was super exciting as well. Anyway, as we were messaging back and forth, I felt more and more like, hey, maybe this woman could be someone special. Obviously, I knew that it was way too soon to read anything into it, and I didn't want to fall in love prematurely with someone I only knew from pixels and sound waves. But damn, you know, I liked everything about her, and she seemed to reciprocate my feelings. I just couldn't help but develop some hope that she might be mature, fun, spontaneous, sporty, entrepreneurial, gorgeous, good-hearted, nature-loving, you know, friends appreciating, and basically the woman I was looking for, and I had been looking for ever since my relationship was over. But in any case, I wanted to meet her and find out, especially since she seemed to be so different from your average sushi-loving, half-naked, wannabe Instagram influencer you get bombarded with on Tinder. So anyway, on New Year's Eve, we agreed to send each other pics of how we spent the evening. So I mustered my sober state, gathered all the friends I partied with, and we took a group pic. Imagine it like that, you know, Hollywood one with Ellen and all the stars, just without Ellen and all the stars. So I hit send and couldn't wait to hear back from her, but she never responded to me again. Maybe it was a New Year's resolution to stop online dating, or she got back with her ex again, or she Googled me and saw old pics of me and my ex, you know, that we hadn't removed from the web yet, or she thought I was moving too fast, or one of a million other potential reasons. I reached out to her once more the next day because, hey, you know, maybe she just had too much to drink and couldn't reply, but nothing. I couldn't believe it, especially since she seemed to be a good person. You know, she even had started a business to help the elderly enjoy a better life. So she clearly had a heart for others. I was dumbfounded. How could a good person do that? Is what I kept asking myself. So even though I hadn't met her in person and thus couldn't be sure I would still like her if we ever did meet, you know, getting ghosted was a profoundly painful experience, I gotta tell you. I had met other women after my relationship had ended, but didn't feel anything special about any of them, except that they were pretty, you know. But yeah, so getting ghosted by the first seemingly cool person I had met after my relationship gave the whole thing a uniquely painful sting. You might say, ooh, poor baby now, and that would be the appropriate reaction, you know, because my story was arduous to me. However, compared to stories of some other friends and acquaintances, it's just nothing. Ready to hear a freaking crazy story? So years ago, a friend of mine came home to his girlfriend of more than 5 years, not thinking anything bad. But bad it got, trust me. As he walked in and called her, he quickly realized that she had left. All her stuff was gone, and no matter what he tried, there was no way to reach her. She didn't respond to his texts or calls, and he thought of a crime. I mean, totally understandable, right? So this wasn't anything like her. So he started reaching out to people who knew her, and that's when he learned that she was fine but had left town. She was gone, just like that. She had simply left the life they had built together, including a dog and home, and she hadn't even written a note. Unimaginable, what the hell this must have been. I deeply admire him for getting back up on his feet again after this. We also hear ghosting stories from clients at our coaching agency, Reconnected, all the time. When I say me, I mean my co-founder, Nick Nodas, and I. The stories that we hear, they usually go like this. Our client meets someone online, and they chat for a few days or weeks. Then they go out for a first date, and everything appears to go well. And they kiss, they laugh, they share meals and drinks. They go home, happy and hopeful. And they often even write things like, "I had a really great time tonight." And then only to never hear from their dates again. So this happens all the time, guys. You wouldn't believe it. To men as well as women, by the way. So what do these people believe to achieve by letting another human being stand in the rain with nothing to protect them from the acidic thoughts that get inevitably triggered by this behavior? Can they even have a heart if they do something horrible like that? The next thing I'm going to tell you might be shocking. I don't think most ghosters are bad people at all. But let me explain. The problem with ghosting isn't that a single person's expectations weren't met and they got hurt. The problem is that in our time, human relationships seem to become more and more transactional and detached from any responsibility. It's difficult to tell someone you don't want to continue seeing them. So you just ignore them until they get it, right? Ghosting is a problem of societal, emotional barbarism, and not just a problem of an individual's ego getting hurt. Would anyone dare to ignore a person that is talking to them in real life? Very unlikely. However, just because we don't see a person right before us doesn't mean the situation changes. You know what changes with distance though? Our ability to show empathy. I'll explain with a dumb and very graphic example. So what's easier? Eating a piece of beef that comes packaged ready to cook, or having to slaughter a cow you raised and named Linda and then cutting the same piece of meat out of her corpse? You see, detachment makes it much easier on us emotionally. This principle has been used time and again throughout history to make the most cruel of crimes more bearable for the perpetrators conducting them. Most notoriously, the Nazis used this principle when they designed and built the gas chambers in the concentration camps. It turns out that the Nazi officers were able to spend much nicer weekends with their families after not being confronted with the blood, begging and crying from killing countless innocents during their work week. But back to ghosting. I think we established that ghosting only happens because of the distance the phone or internet brings. As stated before, no one in their right mind would ignore another person in real life like that, because we have this cool superpower called empathy that would make us feel really shitty if we did. I've worked with people who told me, "Julian, I'd rather get beaten up badly than get ghosted again." And as you could tell from my own story, even the mildest forms of ghosting can feel like torture. But I still believe that ghosters aren't just malicious. Some of my closest friends have ghosted others. They were never right to do so, but they had their reasons. They have a fear of intimacy and respond by running away. They think it's a valid way to break up with someone and the other person will get it eventually. They want to avoid a difficult conversation or possible conflict. They are too afraid to tell the other person the bad news because they don't want to hurt them. They don't think it's a big deal or they realize it's shitty, but justify it because that's what everyone does. They make a decision to not converse with the person anymore, but are afraid they will be convinced otherwise. he's not good for me, it's best if I just cut off all contact or else I'll get weak and agree to see him again. Or they didn't know what to respond because they were nervous and in a complicated situation, and they waited a day to reply, and it got more awkward, and they didn't know what to say, and so they waited some more, and it got even more awkward, and they realized they fucked up, and now it's just easier to not respond at all. The problem with ghosting is that the ghoster usually doesn't see the consequences. When you punch someone in the mouth, you can see the pain, hear the screams, and feel the other's rage, right? But when you decide to ignore someone, you can't see them cry alone at home. You can't hear them praying to God. Why? If only I knew why. You can't feel the emotional ruins that broken hope leaves behind inside these people. That's why it's easier to ghost someone than to punch someone, even though the pain and consequences of ghosting are perceived as far worse. Ghosters aren't necessarily bad people, as I said. On the contrary, usually they ghost others because they don't want to say something hurtful to another person. Sure, their reasons are selfish, but at least they think about someone else's feelings. A psychopath wouldn't care about any of that. But ghosters are often immature. They justify their actions in front of themselves and friends with statements such as, "Oh, you know, I'm just living life and don't want to take things too seriously." Or they treat the other person like a number because they also see others or message with multiple people and act like it's nothing because everyone just plays things casual nowadays and doesn't get emotionally involved until much later. They act as if nothing bad happened and the ghosted person is crazy or needy for thinking otherwise. Ghosting is a power play in a way. It says, I have so many other options and care so little that even responding to a message would be overkill for how trivial our encounter was. It makes people feel powerful to be in demand and judge over who they elect to invest their time in. But ghosters miss one crucial thing. Once they meet someone they do care about, they will become afraid of that person doing the same thing to them. This is a general principle. We all think that others think like we do. So when you ghost others, you subconsciously start to believe that there is a good chance that you might be ghosted someday as well. To protect yourself from getting hurt, you start playing more games, act more aloof, and treat love and sexuality like it's nothing. My friend who came home to an empty house was brave enough to vulnerably share who he was with another person. He trusted that person and opened himself up to her. She knew what he liked in bed. She saw what he looked like after he woke up. She heard what he thought about the world and the meaning of life. He shared all of this with the person he considered trustworthy and close to him. Stepping out of his life without another word ripped a hole in his heart and everything he thought he knew about women as well as himself. How hard is it to let another person into your life again after something like that happened? What do you think? There is no quick way to heal these wounds, Even with minor ghosting events like I experienced, it's hard not to start doubting your knowledge of human nature. It's fucking hard to not start thinking, with the next one I meet, I will not get too invested and definitely see a ton of other people simultaneously, so I won't get hurt again. I caught myself thinking like that, In one sentence, ghosting erodes trust and breeds more ghosting for both the ghoster and the ghostee. In our modern dating world, real emotional connections get left behind like roadkill on the side of a busy road. But love breeds trust. Without it, there is no soil that a happy relationship or even a friendship can grow on. That was the last metaphor in this video, I promise. So, ghosting is troubling because it's a troubling social phenomenon that all of us need to take seriously. It's easy to think that one person not responding to another person isn't a big deal. But when you look behind the curtain and see that a lack of empathy is behind it all, the implications become much more real. What's next? Is it okay in the future to leave your partner without breaking up with them? Is it going to be acceptable in the future to just abandon your family when they get tiresome? Will the phrases counting on someone, having another's back, trusting someone with your life lose all meaning for the next generations? Is that something we want? If not, then all of us need to clearly condemn behavior such as ghosting. Caring for others, no matter if they are our closest friend or someone we just met, needs to become cool again. We love stories of where the protagonist is helped in a desperate situation by the chance stranger who cares. How about we are that stranger for once and amass the courage and sense of responsibility that one needs to give another person bad news? Yes, firing someone is hard. Yes, telling someone you don't want to hang out anymore is hard. Yes, breaking up with someone is hard. But that doesn't mean one can avoid it by disappearing. I don't know about you, but I want a future where people care for one another and feel a sense of social responsibility towards others. And maybe the first step towards that is acknowledging that technology has a major impact on our emotional development. And perhaps we need to design it in a way that doesn't lead to an atrophy of empathetic ability, Ghosting is certainly a huge warning sign that we are on that exact path as a society. I would advise every ghoster watching this to reach out to the people they ghosted and just tell them, hey, I'm sorry for ignoring you. It wasn't right for me at the time, but I should have told you what's going on. I'm sorry I acted immaturely back then. This is what mature people do, guys. Yes, it might trigger some uncomfortable responses, but it will be a good deed and will help you believe there are still good, honest people just like you out there. Because let's not kid ourselves here. No matter if you are a world-renowned supermodel, a billionaire, or an average Joe, all of us want to be someone we can trust and be ourselves around without fearing judgment and abandonment. Love breeds trust, ghosting erodes it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, do me a favor and take a second out of your busy day to subscribe and ring the bell. Your support helps us produce more counterbalance to harmful social phenomena such as ghosting. Alright, thanks again, and let me know if you ever had any experiences with ghosting in the comments below. Have a good one.